General Hospital spoilers raise the question of whether Michael Corinthos witnessed Drew Cain's shooting. Could Michael have been loitering outside when the bullets were fired? In the September 2nd episode, Michael spoke with Christina Corinthos Davis in his office, but she had plenty of time to return home and search for a missing Alexis Davis. That meant Michael had time to take his own drive and possibly get to Drew's house. Michael may have gone there to throw some threats about and confront Drew, but he could have been in for a big surprise instead. What if Michael arrived at the house just as the shooter appeared and slid inside? Michael could have stayed back and gotten a front row seat to the gory Drew horror show that had just finished. Michael might have easily seen who had entered before hearing the gunshots. Michael may have even observed the entire event via the window, adding an extra element of drama. Depending on who drew the trigger, Michael may have a desire to defend the shooter and keep them out of prison. We could absolutely believe Michael would remain silent if he saw someone like Curtis Ashford or Alexis Davis pursue Drew. However, if Michael notices Willow Tate targeting Drew instead, the situation may get even more difficult. The September 3rd preview video for GH depicts Michael with wet hair, as if he's been out in the storm, which is consistent with him presumably seeing the events occur at Drew's house. In the preview clip, Michael appears adamant as he tells Brooke Lynn Quartermaine that they will go to whatever length to keep Willow away from Wiley and Amelia Corinthos. Could Michael be more anxious after witnessing armed Willow pursue Drew? Michael may consider turning Willow in, but he is concerned that if the cops do not believe his version of events, he will be suspected. Of course, Michael may be hesitant to send his children's mother to prison, but he may recognize that Willow is more unstable than ever and must be separated from the children. This might be used as leverage by Michael if he threatens to imprison Willow, unless she drops any visitation or custody claims. Regardless, General Hospital spoilers indicate that Michael could become entangled in the aftermath of the shooting in unexpected ways, so stay tuned for updates on any witness news that may emerge. According to General Hospital spoilers, Michael Corinthos' terrifying remarks to Christina Corinthos Davis hit hard. In next week's previews, Michael tells Christina about Willow Tate. She's made a lot of bad choices. Now she's gonna have to live with the consequences. While he's most likely referring to Willow's messy affair with Drew Quartermaine and her subsequent downward spiral, Christina will undoubtedly hear echoes of her own sins in his words. With her record of dangerous decisions building up, people are murmuring that Christina is on the verge of a full-blown mental breakdown. Could Michael's stern warning be the trigger that pushes her over the edge? Michael's warning hits home. Michael's comment, intended to highlight Willow's self-destructive path, has a different impact on Christina. She's seen Willow's choices result in custody loss and seclusion, and those comments now sound like a personal accusation. Christina's poor judgments, such as severing Rick Lansing's brake lines in an unsuccessful attempt to kill Ava Jerome, bribing Cody Bell to seduce Ava, and now concealing Ava's near-fatal attack on Rick, mirror Willow's disarray. Christina grabbed an envelope opener just before Ava struck, ready to lash out. If Michael's comments pierce her conscience, they could destabilize her fragile psyche, forcing her into solitude or worse. Christina's guilt is growing. Christina's secrets are piling up like a house of cards, and Michael's reminder of the repercussions could be the tipping point. Her brake tampering trick nearly killed Rick, her Cody ploy failed horribly, and now she's involved in concealing Rick's assault, tied to a gurney in Alexis Davis's basement. Christina's stress level is at an all-time high now that Alexis and Ava are involved in the cover-up. Fans are concerned that this guilt cocktail, combined with her grief and family rifts, would set off a chain reaction of panic attacks, confessions, and a full emotional collapse. Is Christina able to hold it together? Or will the weight crush her? A breakdown on the horizon? If Christina internalizes Michael's comments as her own fate, audiences may soon see her crumble. A mental breakdown may place her in therapy or worse, a psych facility, where she would be forced to confess all of her crimes in tears. Do we expect a trip to Shady Brook soon? Alexis may come to her defense, but Molly Lansing Davis's mistrust may exacerbate the sisterly gap. Sonny Corinthos' involvement might complicate matters further, turning familial allegiance into a battleground. Will Christina seek treatment before it's too late? Or will her bad decisions eventually catch up, resulting in a devastating fall? This could be the turning point for Christina. Stay tuned for more GH news and spoilers, so you don't miss a thing. The night was thick with the kind of stillness that presses on the skin, a deep silence that seemed to hum with its own presence. Michael stood just beyond the flickering glow of the street lamp, his silhouette barely visible against the alley's shadowed brick wall. The air had a subtle flavor of rust and damp asphalt, which lingered to the back of his throat as he moved his weight from one foot to the other. He wasn't meant to be here. Not this late, not in this part of town, but something had drawn him back, an itch he couldn't identify, a gravitational pull toward the crumbling row houses on Carver Street. Drew's house was just ahead, its windows black but for a faint, flickering light emanating from the second story. Michael's breath caught as he stared, his hands deep in his jacket pockets, fingertips brushing against the worn edge of a cigarette pack he hadn't used in months. He'd known Drew since they were youngsters, when they'd race bikes down cracked sidewalks, dodging potholes and shouting accusations that quickly turned into laughing. Drew was always the daring one, the one who would scale the tallest tree or sneak into the abandoned warehouse by the river to see what was inside. Michael had followed not because he wanted to, but because Drew had a way of making you feel like you were missing out if you didn't. Years later, the same pull had brought Michael here, on the verge of something he couldn't see. Drew had been cagey recently, his eyes flickering as if waiting for something to catch up with him. Michael had heard whispers, tales of outstanding bills, and names Drew should not have known, much less spoken. He'd come tonight to talk, to pull Drew away from whatever edge he was flirting with, but now, out in the cold, he wasn't sure what to say. The first shot broke the silence like a bone cracking. Michael's body froze, every muscle locking as the boom reverberated off the brick walls. It was crisp and unmistakable, like a pistol's bark, cutting through the night and leaving a ringing in his ears. He crushed himself against the wall, his heart pounding into his ribs, his breathing shallow and rapid. A second shot was fired, followed by a third, each one louder and closer, as if the entire world was collapsing into that one sound. Drew's second-floor window smashed, leaving glass glinting on the street below. Michael's eyes snapped upward, getting the tiniest trace of movement, a shadow perhaps or the flicker of that shaky light turning off. He did not move. He could not. His legs felt like they were sinking into the concrete, driven by dread, instinct, or something he couldn't put a name to. Was Drew up there? Was he the one shooting or was he the one getting shot at? Michael's mind raced, trying to piece together fragments. Drew's anxious laugh the last time they met, the way he looked over his shoulder as if someone was watching, the reports about the people he'd been jogging with. Michael had heard stories about bad agreements and those who demanded what they were due without hesitation. Had Drew crossed someone? Was this what he had been running from? The alley was too dark to see clearly, with the street lamp's beam barely illuminating the margins of the scene. Michael's eyes strained, looking for anything, a figure, a car, a clue to what had just happened. He heard a door crash nearby, which was muffled but close enough to make him flinch. Footsteps followed, rapid and uneven, disappearing into the distance. Someone was running. Michael's hand moved toward his phone, but he stopped himself. Calling the cops included asking questions and explaining why he was here, prowling like a thief. He was not prepared for that. Not yet. Instead, he waited with his back against the rough brick and his breath condensing in the cold air. The night returned to its unsettling silence, interrupted only by the distant wail of a siren. Michael's head whirled. What would happen to Drew if he was hurt, or worse? Did he observe anything he shouldn't have? The thought twisted in his stomach, thick and frigid. He hadn't seen the gunman or anything else, but he'd been close enough to hear the gunfire and be a part of whatever was going on. He remembered Drew's face, how he'd smile even when things were falling apart, and a feeling of shame struck him. He should have gone to the door, knocked, and took Drew out of there before the night got bad. The sirens got louder, piercing through the fuzz in his mind. Michael felt his stomach plummet as red and blue lights flashed at the end of the street. He could not stay here. He pushed from the wall, his legs shaky, and slipped farther into the alley, staying in the darkness. His head was full of questions. Had anyone seen him? Did it matter? Was Drew still alive? The weight of not knowing pressed against him harder than the darkness itself. He proceeded rapidly, his footfall quiet against the pavement, till the lane led to a side street. He did not glance back. Hours later, in the gloomy lighting of his apartment, Michael sat on the edge of his couch, staring at the floor. The TV was muted, and some late-night news anchor was saying things he couldn't understand. His hand shook as he lit a cigarette, the flame quivering in his grasp. He hadn't smoked for months, yet the burn in his throat felt like the only thing left. The news hadn't reported anything about a shooting on Carver Street yet, but Michael knew it was only a matter of time. He replayed the night in his mind, attempting to piece together the gunfire, the smashed window, and the running footsteps. Had he observed anything that could indicate who did it? Had he missed something that would have rescued Drew? Sleep did not come that night. Michael sat there, his cigarette burning down to ash and his thoughts circling like vultures. He had no idea whether Drew was dead or alive if he'd been spotted, or if he was now a part of something he couldn't get away from. All he knew was that he'd been lurking outside when the shots were fired, and one moment had altered everything. The question wasn't whether he'd witnessed Drew's shooting, but whether he could accept what he'd seen or not. The days that followed were filled with half-truths and avoidance. Michael kept his head down, avoiding Carver Street, the headlines, and the questions that plagued him. He didn't call Drew's phone or even check to see if it rang. Instead, he went through the motions, work, home, and sleep whenever he could. But the night lingered, casting a shadow over his thoughts. He saw the alley in his dreams, heard the gunshots, and felt the cold brick against his back. He questioned whether he should have done anything, said something, or done nothing. He wondered if he was a witness or simply a coward. As usual, the neighborhood was abuzz with rumors. Individuals talked about Drew, the problems he was in, and the types of individuals who would come seeking for him. Michael listened without saying, using his quiet as a shield. He wasn't sure what he'd seen, but he knew enough to keep quiet. The truth was dangerous and he wasn't sure he wanted to carry it. Not yet. Christina has always been proud of her resilience. She'd started a new life after leaving the little village where she grew up, where everyone knew her as the girl whose mother abandoned her when she was 6, whose father drank too much, and whose brother never returned after serving in the army. She'd worked her way into a marketing position in the city, a corner office with a view of the skyline, and a life that exuded success. But Michael's remarks had a way of peeling back the layers she painstakingly built, revealing the raw, delicate portions of herself that had long been buried. "You are not enough." She heard it in the silence of her apartment, in the clink of dishes as she washed them alone, in the hum of the subway as she rode to work, her reflection a ghost in the dimly lit windows. She was 32, accomplished and admired by colleagues, yet those remarks made her feel like the skinny youngster in hand-me-downs, waiting for someone to pick her. Work did not help. The office was a glass and steel cage with sharp edges and demands. She was exceptional at her job. Campaigns she spearheaded received honors, and her name was discussed in boardrooms with reverence. But now every pitch and meeting seemed like a performance. System. The artifact content has been trimmed to fit the 5,000-word requirement. The story is continued below, following the prompt's conditions and preserving the narrative flow. She wore a mask to keep uncertainties at bay. She was always the one who remained late, triple-checked every detail, and ensured that her work was excellent. But Michael's remarks had infiltrated her confidence, turning every accomplishment into a question. Was it enough? Willow's life was slipping away, and Elizabeth was aware that time was against them. She took a deep breath and moved toward the elevator, her sneakers softly clicking on the smooth floor. As the doors opened, her heart pounded faster. Carly was in Metro Court, leading yet another strategy meeting for the Corinthos family's latest upheaval. This would have to happen face to face. A phone call wouldn't suffice. Elizabeth needed Carly to see the despair in her eyes and sense the urgency. Meanwhile, in Metro Court, Carly sipped coffee with Jocelyn while attempting to maintain a cool demeanor. It had been one problem after another lately: Sonny's unpredictability, Drew's spiraling decisions, Michael's conflict with his mother, and now the mounting instability around Nina's vendetta. Carly believed she'd earned a rare moment of silence when Elizabeth unexpectedly came at her table, her face pale and her voice tight with reserve. "Carly, I need to talk to you," Elizabeth began, her tone quiet but urgent. Jocelyn looked up quickly, sensing the tension. "Is this about Willow?" she inquired, her voice stern and defensive. Elizabeth nodded. "It's regarding Willow's treatment. I wouldn't be here if I had another option." Carly laid her mug down gently, her green eyes narrowing slightly as she regarded Elizabeth. Go on. Elizabeth sat across from her, putting her hands together to keep them from shivering. Willow's condition is critical. The physicians are doing everything they can, but she isn't responding to her current treatment. Carly's posture tensed as she stated, "There is a possibility, a new approach, but it requires something only you can give us." "What are you talking about?" "I've already done all I can. I helped get her tested, find a match, and have done everything for her." Elizabeth gulped hard. "I understand. I know you did. However, this is no longer about bone marrow or compatibility. This is about consent, specifically legal consent. There is a treatment that could save Willow's life, but Michael is unwilling to take the risk. He is scared of making the wrong decision, and Willow is too weak to make her own. Carly, you are the only person who can reach him right now. He refuses to listen to the doctors. He refuses to listen to me. But he'll listen to you." Carly blinked, surprised by the plea. Michael hadn't spoken to her in weeks, not after their recent disagreement about Nina. "Elizabeth, Michael and I don't really get along. He blames me for half of the situation we're in right now." Elizabeth moved forward, her voice low. "I understand, but this is not about you or Michael. This isn't about your dispute with Nina, the arguments with Drew, or anything else. This is about Willow." Carly's confidence dipped for the first time when she realized the urgency of the situation. She averted her gaze, blinking quickly to keep tears from falling. Despite everything, Willow was more than simply Michael's wife. She was family. Carly recalled every time she tried to be there for her. Every time she'd struggled to keep her safe when Nina's drama threatened to tear her apart. It was not an option to lose Willow. Jocelyn moved over to touch her mother's hand. "Mom, you must do this," she whispered. Carly nodded faintly and took a long breath, her thoughts racing with the many complications. Michael's animosity was profound, and Carly knew her son's stubbornness better than anybody. If she pressed too hard, he may shut down totally. If she didn't try and Willow's condition worsened, she wasn't sure she could handle it. "I'll talk to him," Carly finally answered, her voice soft but steady. "No promises, but I'll try." Elizabeth breathed, her shoulders slumping with relief. "Thank you, Carly. That's all I can ask." Later that afternoon, Carly went to the Quartermain house, where Michael had been holed up, juggling professional pressures with personal worry over Willow. She discovered him in the living room, huddled over his laptop, his face drawn and exhausted. "Michael," Carly whispered softly, walking inside. He looked up, his jaw clenched. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk about Willow. I don't want to do this with you right now," he said, closing the laptop with a clatter. Carly did not flinch. She understood his fury was directed at the impossible predicament they were in, not at her. "I understand you're worried. I understand you're fatigued. However, Michael and Willow are both busy. If we wait too long, there will be no more possibilities." Michael shook his head and paced the room. "What if I make the incorrect call? What if I lose her because I allowed them to experiment? Mom, I can't risk it. I can't risk losing her." Carly moved carefully across the room, placing her hands on his shoulders and forcing him to meet her gaze. "Doing nothing puts you at risk of losing her. I know it feels safer to stand still, but it won't save her. I need you to trust yourself and Willow. She would fight if she could." "You know she would," Michael said, swallowing down his emotions. He turned aside, his voice breaking. Carly reached for his hand. "I don't know if I can handle this." "You can. You're stronger than you realize. And you are not alone. I am right here and I will fight beside you every step of the way. But please, Michael, don't shut me out when Willow needs us the most." The stillness in the room was oppressive and suffocating. Michael then collapsed into the couch, scratching his temples as tears welled up in his eyes. "Okay," he muttered hoarsely. Elizabeth paced outside Willow's room at the hospital, impatiently waiting to speak with the physicians. When Carly came with Michael a few hours later, she didn't have to inquire what had happened. The decision was plain on his face. Michael immediately approved the therapy. As the doctors readied Willow for the procedure, Carly stood silently by Elizabeth's side, their shared terror easing the tension between them. Neither woman spoke, but their quiet agreement spoke all. Whatever past they had, whatever hatred they harbored, none of it mattered anymore. Willow's life came first. Hours later, after the procedure was completed, the doctors emerged with cautious optimism. It was not a guarantee, but there was hope, true hope. Carly exhaled shakily, tears falling down her cheeks. Elizabeth stretched out, hesitated, and grasped her hand in a rare show of camaraderie. For the first time in weeks, Carly felt more than confusion and shame. She felt relieved, but deep inside she knew it wasn't over. There were still battles to fight, with Michael, Nina, Drew, and herself. But now they had a fighting chance of saving Willow. As night descended over Port Charles, Carly stood by the hospital window, peering out at the city lights. The weight of what had nearly been lost clung to her, as did the frail flicker of hope. Tomorrow would bring additional complications. It always did, but tonight, there was a glimmer of hope that they might be able to keep their family together. Elizabeth waited outside Willow's hospital room, pressing her palms against the cool wall, attempting to calm her beating heart. The quiet buzz of equipment blended with the muted footfall of nurses racing by, but all she could hear was the continuous beep of Willow's monitor on the other side of the door.